Hey guys, ChessMobster here. Nice to see you, chess thugs. We're gonna do a set of quads. This is the second quads we've ever done, and same place around my area. And in this one, it actually splits into two sections. There's that many people. I'm in the second section, around the top player, and I start as white, and I start with d4. I grab the center and I really am comfortable already with this move. Having white first game, it's always a nice thing. And then they go g6, so already I'm thinking of like a King's Indian type of structure with this bishop coming to g7, stuff like that. And yeah, and it really becomes a really fun game. Because after g6, I go c4, they go bishop g7, I go knight of 3, they go knight of 6. So it's kind of typical King's Indian. I'm probably going to go for e4. They're maybe going to potentially go for f5 in some lines, maybe even d5. So I'm very open to a lot of things. I go knight of c3, they castle, I go e4. And then they do a move that I didn't expect. They go h6. And already, I knew instantly this was a bad move. I just fully not sure how to punish it. So typically there is other moves I probably could have done than e5, but I kind of trusted my instinct and a little bit of calculation and saw, okay, they're giving me more of a future. Maybe another move that would have been maybe more insightful was h3, basically saying, okay, they're giving me a tempo. This h3 prevents knight g4 and bishop g4, which are typical things for black to do in this structure, while h6 doesn't really make sense. It's not really preventing. I'm most likely not going to go knight g5, bishop g5, maybe knight g5 in some lines, but h6 is just a little maybe weak, just not as much of a useful move as h3. So instead of e5, maybe that was a little bit better, but I went e5. They went knight h7. I go bishop d3. I'm kind of okay with this move, but really you probably should develop the bishop here because it's probably going to see more on this diagonal sometimes than d3 because their typical pushes are f5. So I probably could have gone bishop e3, maybe bishop e2 later, and they would have gone d6, bishop e2. They go to d6, kind of smart seeing that this structure is, they need to weaken it with a move like d6. I take, they take, bishop e3, knight c6, h3, knight e7. And see, I played h3 here, right? And maybe it was smarter to have played h3 earlier, but it's still a decent position for both. I go queen c2. This is kind of an awkward placement in this type of situation for this queen, because really I should realize that queen d2 is probably a smarter square. Like I said, this light square diagonal isn't going to get as much benefit as I want. So maybe queen d2 would have been more insightful. They go knight f5, I castle. Practically, again, I should have admitted my mistake of putting my queen on c2. What I should have done here was bishop xf5, bishop xf5, and queen d2, except my mistake. It's very hard sometimes as a chess player to do this, admit that you've made a mistake, and basically have to go into a move that you probably should have done earlier. And it's really hard for me to ever take this bishop because I didn't want them to have this brilliant bishop. But I just castled because I really was like, okay, but I want a double-edged position. I want to attack on this side. And this is mainly a bad move because they just have knight x e3. If they do knight x e3, basically I'm stuck with this weak pawn, which I did know, but I kind of wanted to try to play around it, maybe push e4 at some point. But this would have been better for them than rook e8. I go rook h1, basically saying, okay, but maybe I should protect this piece a little bit more. They go a6. I go g4. Here I should have realized that saving the bishop to prevent e3 weakness is important here. I should have gone bishop f4. I think I was slightly worried about knight x d4, but there's no worry here because I have rook x, queen x, knight x d4. And if they ever take the knight, I can always go knight d5. And there's just so much pressure here. There's really no way to go out of that. They would have to go some move like bishop e5. I'd even win my pawn back. This position would be a lot more better than g4. Because really it allows knight x d3, rook x here, and basically it's a very even game. If anything, black maybe has more of an idea in this game going on this weak pawn. They go queen f6, rook f1. Maybe this wasn't the right move because it allows my rook f1. They go queen e6. I go queen f2, which is actually a really good move because I realize that this pawn is going to become weak in the future, and I realize that I really just need to protect this chain somehow. They go bishop d7. I go knight d5. They go rook e8. See, I actually, in this situation, I first calculated knight x e7 because it's really one of the moves you want to look at instantly in this position because you're forking it. I just didn't like the following line, and I thought e4 was maybe more of an optimal move, but actually knight x e7 was the best move, and if you take here, they take here, take. I thought this is kind of a weird position, but my king gets more in the center, and if anything, white maybe has slightly something here, but pretty much equal, and then yeah. But I went e4, which is still kind of fun because I'm still putting that threat, making them have to bring their rook back, and I'm starting to like my position a little bit more in this situation. I go king b1 though. I don't really want to have to suffer this. Maybe this was a little bit too fast too. I probably should have just gone e5 immediately. And as if they take this pawn, I don't actually lose a pawn because if they ever take, I have queen take over there. And the structure I thought was weak, but actually isn't that bad. So yeah, they go instead. I went king b1. They go b5. Again, I missed this idea of e5. I think I just, for some reason, thought that like c6 or me having the structure isn't that good, but I should have realized that the pawn structure is worth it because the activity of actually activating this bishop and other factors in this position. So I would go e5, they go dx, I go knight x, they go bishop x, and again, they can't really take and go like, because again I have queen x f7, and if they go c6, which is something I thought of, we have knight b6, and really these pieces would probably sing a little bit more than this knight after having to be pushed back into like this kind of corner. So knight b6 is a good move. And let's say they go c6 right away, which is something else I was worried about. I can actually go queen x f7, and if queen x, rook x, and even though they can take this, I can take their bishop. And they can never do like some move like bishop here because I think I would just have check and I win like here. Yeah, because they go here. Oh, no. Wow. That's just main one. That's so beautiful. I just have a main one there. Wow. But, yeah. So, really, the e5, my biggest misses in this game were playing not e5 yet. But after knight f6, I realized this idea after knight f6 kind of gives me more tempo, and I'm realizing, wow, e5 is just strong. I realized after I push away the queen that really there's not many squares for the queen, and e5 just makes my pieces sing like every other line. And after here, with this, I really did like it also just pushed away this knight. This knight is really sad most of the game. And then I played the beautiful move knight x g6. I really was proud to find this move, and it was really my best move in the game. And it's kind of complex, and how you have to make sure you can save the knight, because that was really the hardest thing, that you're basically winning a pawn, because the simplest line that you can see is after fx, bishop x, queen e7, you do win the knight, right? So that's kind of a simple line to see, but something he did in the game that should have been a little, or I did kind of analyze a little bit, was after bishop x c4, bishop b5, I did realize that like they still can't take, and that's why bishop c4 basically helps me in this position. I do a little bit of a misstep here because I kind of just want to close in the knight more, and I still have the advantage. But something that would have been better here was really knight fh4. And it kind of looks weird because it's like, isn't your thing still struggling? And can they still go d5 here? But if they go d5, I can do bishop x b5. They have to take. If they don't, there's really like, I can pretty much just bring it back. Or no, I think, wait, if they go like here, don't I have this crazy move? No, I think I looked at this crazy move. Yeah, I just have like knight f4. So I can just save it and then save the bishop. So that's actually not that crazy. But they would have to do queen x, and then I would have this check. And that basically saves it because this queen can take this knight if this king ever takes this knight. And after knight g6, I can even do that. And then rook x. And this is just a beautiful combination that I saw earlier. Is if they do rook x. I did after analysis after the game. I can go queen in here, and there's really no way to not get mated. because if you go here, I can go here, basically win even more material. So you go knight f6, and yeah, this is just crushing. And then if they do exd6, if I go here, I also saw that exd6 was kind of even a better move. But exd6 was a little bit hard to find because you're basically opening up this rook. But the idea is after cxdx, you can still do bishop x, and if they ever take, I would take. So most lines here are actually pretty decent here, other than h4. But I do still have the advantage. They go d5. I go bishop x d5. Really, what the move they should have gone for was like bishop x c4, queen x, rook d8. Their pieces kind of get out a little bit more because now they don't really they do win the pawn, but basically they can't win the pawn because then I would do rook e1. So again, here I just have tactics here that really help me, and all these pawns are just weak compared to their position. So after bishop, but they play d5, and I actually was kind of worried in the game, but then I realized that after bishop x b5, queen x, I can actually save it with check. So basically, I realized that line later, kind of like after analysis in the game, that this position kind of saves me. The position goes into time trouble after bishop x, queen x. I'm going to continue. I'll do some of the continuation. After queen x, I did go knight e7. They went king h8. I went knight d2. And let's say they went king f8. Then I would just go knight d2 again, and this piece would hang if they ever take. So it does go into time trouble. I eventually do win this game, though, in time trouble, and continue as my next game as black. This game, they start off with e4. I go into a French. I go into d5, gathering the center. They take, and it kind of goes into an exchange. They go knight f3. I go bishop d6. They go bishop d3. These are very common lines. They're attacking. I'm attacking. It's a very symmetrical position, but can have a lot of maneuvering ability, and that's what really matters in this type of game. After knight c3, I castle. Now, this already I feel like is a tiny bit of a misstep, even though it says that it's good. I think in these exchange structures, you don't usually want to give white or black this rook e1 or rook e8 with check tempo, which they kind of allow it to me. And they do move over knight e2, bishop e2, and knight e2 are both okay. I go bishop g4, they go queen d2, I go h6. I actually had to analyze a little bit here because I realized that if they did bishop x h6, I had to be careful on how I played this because then I would have to do gx. Apparently, they don't even like they actually like knight e4 immediately, but this is what I calculated, and you should look at your lines that you calculate to see. Okay, this is what this is what I did, and maybe I should have like knight e4 actually does make more sense here because they kind of have to take. If they don't, I'm just gonna take the bishop then. So if they take, then both pieces are still kind of hanging. This is a bad position. But what I analyzed was gx h7, h6, and if they did queen x, I would go knight e4 here. So again, a lot of times when you calculate, you can sometimes see a move that maybe would have worked at a different point in a different line. Like after bishop x, I probably should have just played knight e4 if they ever did that. But instead, I calculated this. And then knight e4, bishop x, rook x, knight g5. I would go here, and they would go king f1, calculate all this, and then I calculated bishop f5. Because I realized that if you can get bishop f5 in these scenarios, there's really no check. And even though if they can take my rook and technically be up like a point of material, I go bishop g6, and this position is just way better for me. I mean, I have so much more development. This queen is kind of getting stuck a little bit, so it's not really like the best position, but for white, and that's probably why they didn't go into it. After h6, they went bishop f4. Bishop h4 was probably a little bit better, but they don't go it. I go knight e4 now. They go bishop x, I go rook x. Now this was a very interesting mistake to me because I love these complicated calculations sometimes, and I realized that I kind of missed cool lines here. So like let's say I went bishop x f4, which is actually a better move than what I did. If they go like some move like bishop h7, I go king x, and this is still pinned, and if they ever like take queen x, I would just go queen e7. And mate is being threatened, and there's really not that many moves that they can really do to really struggle out of here. They would have to go here, I would win a pawn. so that's not good. And if they go knight x f4, I would then go rook x. They would have to go knight back, get knight c6, and again, this is a very constricting line for white that white really doesn't like. And again, if queen x, it kind of transposes into the rook x, queen d2. Again, a very constricting line. So it's more constricting to do that instead of rook x e4. But they went bishop e3. I go knight c6. What they could have done maybe here was like, I guess bishop x d6 and kind of maybe unravel this. Not then, but like maybe unravel that knight later. But as they go bishop e3, I go knight c6. They go a3, which is actually kind of smart because they realize if they go knight c3, I have bishop b4 in some lines. It's kind of a smart idea by them. And then this is a very constricting line. Now I go queen e8. Now this is not a sharp move, and it's probably my worst move in this game. I foggily calculated queen f6, but I always thought their knight could effectively go to knight c3 and maybe take on d5, but I was wrong, and now I see why. I did not see two moves in two separate lines, and I thought it was maybe losing for me. So this really helps in knowing that you should really look at any moves that you possibly can if you have the time. So if I go queen f6 and they go knight c3, if they ever would have gone knight c3, I can actually go bishop x f3, and that's what I saw instantly. Like I knew this was the move if there was any move that I could actually like be winning in this position. Because if they go like basically the simplest line for me is if they went knight x e4, I could go bishop x and basically have two knights for a rook, and this is just objectively winning. So this was the simplest line to see. If I did knight x and bishop x f3, they did knight x d5. This is the one I think that really tricked me. What I can do here is queen e6. And again, if they take like here, I can actually go rook x d4. And this pin, allowing my rook on e8, which is really everything that started here, allows me to win material. And if they castle, I can go rook x d2. If they go like queen x d4, I can take. If they go knight c3, I can go rook x d2. Again, there's just so many, and really if they move their queen away, I can really just win a knight. So queen e6 I did not see, but it is such a beautiful move. And then another line I didn't really understand was, let me get to it, I'm sorry, was here, was if they did gx f3, which was another idea, you could just simply do queen x. And the idea is like they can't really go here because I can just do queen x and win a rook. And so it's basically just I'm giving tempo along here. And if they have rook g1, I think this is maybe even I got a little bit foggy because they have bishop x d7. I'm just up a clean pawn here because here they don't even have this because technically this is pinned. So again, very like fun lines that you can I didn't fully see, but now I've totally learned from them. So then after queen e8, I went there. I went knight e7. This one I was a little less like I'm not as super upset about this one as I was about the last move, like seeing those lines, because it's really hard to see this, and it's a computer line, though it's helpful to know this middle game idea I should have maybe played, because this is kind of typical in French exchange sometimes. If they're going to castle queen, you really want to go for this like b5 idea, and if they go knight c3, again, I have b4. And it's hard to see because even here, knight x e4 doesn't really make sense to me because, again, I guess I have, I understand now because they basically, wherever this knight goes, I can basically take the rook. And if they go bishop x6, I go some move like bx a3. This is a very computer line, but it is helpful knowing that maybe I should have just gone b5. Instead, I go knight e7. And really, I was actually had some concrete ideas, and at least I had a plan. I saw that their time was dwindling down. This is 30 flat. So I knew that I was probably going to get a better endgame if I could get bishop x f3 at some point, bring the rook back, and I felt like I could actually maybe like play a better endgame than them. And it kind of happens that way a little bit. Like after knight c3, they actually probably should have gone h3, and then I would still have to do this bishop x f3 idea, which I still preferred. They go knight c3, I go rook e6, they go h3, which I wanted here because, again, I wanted bishop x f3. It was really everything that I wanted. Even though I missed those like two middle game like combinations, I knew if I ever got bishop x f3 in, I would most likely have the better end game if I could defend. And after gxf c6, rook hg1, knight f5, bishop f4, queen e7. I even got one of my favorite terms in chess, which is Alekine's gun. It's a really cool idea, and people, you can look it up if you don't know. Uh, and this idea here is very simple, is you want focal control of the file that you have the pieces on. And here it's basically like, I'm basically only going to release control of this file if I think I can get a clear win of a pawn or some other activity. And they go rook dg1, and I go rook here. And they go into time trouble here, and I successfully convert a really nice endgame. This is the continuation for a bit. So I went rook e1, they take. I went queen x, they went knight d1. I go queen x, they go bishop x, and I have this nice move h5. Basically saying, okay, I'm going to win these two pawns while you win this pawn, and again, these pawns are still weaker than these pawns. It's a very nice endgame for me. I go rook g5, I go knight x d4, rook x h5, knight x f3, and this is very nice. And so I go on to, I am on 2-on-2, and I continue off from here. Again, I have white, as I did the first game, and I start with d4. They go d5, I go c4, they go e6, I go knight f3, they go knight f6, I go knight c3, they go c5. The trash, I actually play this as black sometimes. Most likely this exact line. Sometimes, a lot of people sometimes take here. Right here, I kind of wanted to go into, there was a friend of mine that I do really play similar lines like these, and I realized that I was really starting to like cxd5 more. After cxd5, they went the cxd4 line, main line, and here I can go queen x. That or knight x is decent, but I prefer the queen x because really I really like the scenario. If I get this bishop g5 line in, I actually do want to show a quick line. I think it's from here a little bit. So like, let's say they went cxd5, which is normal, right? I have this cool move. I'm trying to think if it works here. Yes, so it's actually this cool like line I made, not made, but figured out. And they go knight c6. I actually have bishop x f6, and really gx or gx is probably still okay on this line. I think it's still okay. Yeah, gx would have still been fine. I would have won the queen x d5 pawn. But they have this cool idea, is if they go here, I'm actually completely winning, because after I take the queen, they check, I go king d2. I'm either going to win this knight if they take the bishop, or if they take the rook, I can actually go to like queen, I think, bishop h4, and I'm going to win this knight and just be up a point of material. Very nice for me. Basically, I would have two pieces for rook, which is basically a very big advantage. So this was a line I was somewhat hoping for, but after queen x d4, they went knight x d5. Now, I actually, in the game, I didn't think it was fully inaccurate, because in some of these lines, you can do this, take with the knight instead of the pawn. But now I knew positionally that it allows e4, which I thought was very beneficial with e4. I thought exd5 and knight xd5 were very like similar in that aspect. But I knew if it allows e4 that I'm going to want to play e4. And they went knight c6. Now, in the game, I honestly did not like knight c6. It is an okay move, though, but I just didn't like that it allowed bishop b5, because it really makes it easier for white to develop. They were telling me after the game that they did not want to trade queens, so they didn't like knight x e3. But I told them even after the game that I would have never traded queens, because I don't actually like that endgame per se. I feel like it's very equal, and I even have this weakness of a pawn. I said I would have most likely gone queen x c3 and continued off here like this. But in the game, they go knight c6, and again, I just feel like it's a little weakening allowing bishop e5. It basically gives me activity, and I basically want to give this weak c6 pawn. Why I mentioned earlier that me and my friend play this line a lot sometimes is they sometimes try to make it where I have to have two isolated pawns with this A and C, which is very smart as black to basically make that weakness for white. And I realized as white, you can basically do the same thing to black if you play it in certain ways. And here I was like, okay, I was really happy with my position, because after knight x a3, bishop x c6, having tempo because of check, and they go bx c6, queen x c3, I've basically gotten the endgame that I wanted. Not endgame, but if it would go into an endgame, this would basically be really good for me. They go queen b6. Now, I really liked my position here because of the weak c6 pawn. Though my play, in my opinion, I played probably the worst, one of the worst moves of the tournament. Even though it's actually the best game I think I played. I think I played like around 95% accuracy, but like I didn't like what I played here because I played a3. Now I was kind of instantly afraid in the game of bishop b4, and so that's why I played a3. But it doesn't make sense because even if you play a3, you basically lose the right to castle after bishop a6. And what you should do is really just castle to safety, and you have a fun game here for white. Again, having the things that I just said, this weak c6 pawn. But after bishop a6, I go bishop. It kind of makes it hard for me to castle, and it's a very equal game now. And after bishop e3, they go queen b5. This is a very bad move, and he missed it after the game. I think c5 would have been a double-edged, and I was most likely thought I was going to see c5, and I thought this would be a double-edged game for both. And I would have probably castled, even though it doesn't like it. And I thought they would maybe go bishop e2, rook d2, bishop xf3, but this is actually really good for me. And they maybe wouldn't have done all this, but I knew I would have probably castled after c5. They went queen b5. I went knight d4, and why queen b5 is so bad is this knight d4 this knight d4 move protects the e2 checkmate that they're trying to get, and it hits this twice. And this is why it's such a good move. And they go queen c4 here. I thought they were going to go queen b7. I thought it was maybe a little bit more practical to have eventual pressure on e4. So if they went queen b7, queen x e6, queen x, knight x6, bishop b7. Actually, I'm kind of curious what other move it really gives. Like it also maybe gives rook c8, but you still probably win the a7 pawn. And this is something I thought was gonna maybe transpose into, but instead they went queen c4, and I actually liked winning this pawn even more in this line because it gives me rook c1 because the bishop's here. And after bishop b5, now this move was kind of I didn't really like it from me because I should have at least followed through. After here, I probably should have gone like f3 here. And done it like this, but I think I just wanted control of these B and D files, and it's kind of why I brought it back, and it's okay, but it didn't really make sense, this maneuver that I made, because really f3 made more sense earlier, and after bishop b5 I do go f3, and after a4 I go king f2, and I very much like how this is going. They go bishop x c6, I go rook x, they go bishop e7, I go bishop d4, basically I want more pressure on this. I kind of want my bishop on c3. And after they castle, I go rook hc1, they go rook fd8, I go rook 1 c4. Way before this, like right here, I realized a plan that I had, which is something that's very helpful to think about, is you want to make plans as much as you want in chess games. And I really liked how I maneuvered, because I wanted, basically what I wanted at this position is I wanted rooks doubled. And I wanted the bishop to be on c3, protecting this like weak b2 pawn and having a really strong scope. And the only way that I thought I could really get both of these items was the way I did it, was after bishop e7, bishop d4, rook c1, rook d8, and rook c4, I do get my rooks doubled, and I do get my bishop on c3. So everything that I wanted. And after this move, actually, it goes into time pressure here, and I eventually win it. It is 3-3, and I win my quad. And it was fun games, and I learned a lot, and excited for the things I learned this quad and every quad, 2 quads I've been. Next quad, it actually should be in like 2 weeks. Not July 4th week, but the next week. And that one's actually going to be 25-5. So there's going to be 5 delay. So I'm curious, with not having as much maybe time pressure or risk of being flagged by both sides, I'm curious if I will have either less games going to time pressure, or time pressure won't probably be such a significant factor for them, because I think that mattered a little bit, even though for all the games that I have shown before time pressure, I did have a better position. So I am curious how that will go. I hope you chess thugs learned something. I definitely did. And yeah, I will see you guys soon. ChessMobster out.